So welcome everyone to another ABC Transcription Tools seminar. This time I'm going to be talking about how I solved a particular problem. And this was this has to do with, we have a local cultist chapter, the Barry Coogan cultist chapter here in San Diego, and they have a tune class, which I wasn't even aware of, to be honest. It's kind of happening under the radar, I guess. But anyway, they have this weekly tune class where they were getting together, and somebody had been collecting all of the tunes that they had and putting them into a PDF tune book. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see here. Yeah, that'll be fine. Okay. So they had a tune book, an existing tune book. I just want to make sure everybody can see this. Can you see this Cultus San Diego Tune Learning Session tune book? Yeah, okay, good. So this is their existing tune book that they had put together, and I think it's about 80 tunes. And it was done using, I mean, it was really complicated. Essentially, they were doing so one of the people in the class, I'm just trying to think this through. One of the people in the class, my friend Lindy, who's a flute player, was she's new to Irish music, but she's a really great musician, and she was transcribing all of the tunes, and then she would use MuseScore, which is kind of there's two versions of MuseScore. There's a desktop version of it, and there's also an online version of it. MuseScore is kind of like Finale or any of those sort of, what would you call it? Desktop, kind of, I'm not going to call them legacy because they're still out there, but it's more of your classic kind of drag the notes into place. You have a staff and you actually put the notes on the staff. It's kind of a manual entry visual editor, kind of a WYSIWYG editor, which is very different than ABC. ABC, we write the notation as a bunch of letters and text, and then we have a program that turns that into the notation. But she actually created each of these tunes, each of these 80 tunes manually by dragging the notes onto the staff and then playing it with MuseScore. And then when she was happy with the results, she would export a PDF file for each of the tunes out of MuseScore. And then she manually, I believe, brought each of those PDFs together into, I forget if it was using Word or using Adobe Acrobat or what, but she basically took these 80 PDF files and then assembled them into this tune book. So that's a pretty labor-intensive process, right? And what you end up with is essentially a static document. In other words, I can send this PDF out to people, but if you know anything about what comes out of my tool, the PDFs are interactive. You can click on the tunes they play. They have built-in tables of contents. You can generate a version for mandolin, for guitar, for any of the tablatures that are supported in the tool very, very quickly. So, so I looked at this and I thought, well, first off, here we are in San Diego. I'm a member of Cultus. I teach once a month for Cultus, and I'm thinking this is insane that the local Cultus branch isn't using my tools. So I decided to just take on the task of converting this entire tune book of 80 some odd tunes into ABC, and then using that to regenerate the tune book, essentially looking identical, but having the ability to play the tunes, having the ability to generate different versions of it for mandolin and guitar players, that sort of thing. And to make it really, really easy to generate new versions of it, because once you have it in ABC, generating a new PDF takes about, a minute. Generating a new version of this means that you have to go back to the original, go through that process again in MuseScore, make your change. You have to locate the file that you made the changes in. You have to then, put it in MuseScore, export it, bring it back in. I mean, it's a much more complicated process than sort of the point and click ability that you have with doing it using the ABC source. So, rather than suggesting they do this, what I did is I just took an afternoon. I think it took about 5 hours, to be honest, because it there are 80 some odd tunes here. But I did the conversion over to the new version of it, and I'll kind of show you. Okay, so we'll go back to the top here, um, and I will open up the end result here. And so this is my version of the same tune book. It has a table of contents at the front. I can click on the tunes here. It's got essentially the same number of tunes per page. Actually looks better, I think. It's higher resolution. And these tunes actually have the feature of opening in my player and that sort of thing. So, so I wanted to show you the process I went through to convert. Yes, Alex, you're muted.
I am sorry. Question. I don't see it listed in the Tunebooks on the player yet. Is that going to be added eventually?
I'm sorry. What do you mean? It's not not listed on my TuneBook page?
Yeah, I don't see it on the Tunebook page on the
Yeah.
player. It's on your website, but it's not on the actual player of listed Tunebooks. I just
Um,
had a look and I didn't see it there. Sorry.
okay, no. So the reason it's not on there is because they have not officially decided to release this yet.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Perfect. Okay.
yeah. So what this was a so what this was essentially a proposal to our local cultist branch, and the people that run it are my friends, and people I play with in my session almost every week. And part of it was that someone, who's going to maintain it, how are they going to release it? Because if you think about it, there's like the person who made it, there's the person who's teaching the class. So there's Lindy, who actually did the original transcription. There's Judy, who's teaching the class, and then they have a webmaster for the cultist branch that has to put the results somewhere. So this hasn't actually been released from the cultist branch yet. It will be in some form, in the next few weeks, I'm sure. The problem is people are going to Lark in the Morning Camp, and I'm sure that the cultist board has to be involved and all that. But anyway, so it's not been officially released yet. But I wanted to show you the process, because this process can be done for any PDF tune book. Let's see, just get my okay. So. Anyway, so back to the original. So here's the original version of it here. And again, these are just static images. And there's a couple things about it that, each tune, it was very nice of Lindy to figure out chords for each tune. She did a nice job of kind of grouping them so they fit on pages nicely and that sort of thing. Okay, so I decided to convert this entire tune book over from just this static thing over to ABC. And there isn't any way to export ABC out of MuseScore. And there might be a way to export, I believe you can export music XML. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to do this completely on my own, without having to ask Lindy for anything. I just said, I've got this PDF that you've sent out, and I'm going to figure out on my own. All I have is this PDF. I'm going to now convert this to ABC. And to do this, I've been using it's actually a mobile app called PlayScore 2. And I've talked about PlayScore 2, and I've used it a lot. If you've seen any of my more kind of insane demos of what's possible with ABC, I've used this tool to do what is generically called music OCR. And what that means is that it's a program that can take images of music, of notation, and it can figure out all of the notes and the key signature and the chords and everything. And at a minimum, this program can play a piece of sheet music. So you can load up a piece of sheet music. It will recognize the notes, and then you can play it. And that's very handy. But the other thing it can do is it can export that version of the tune that it's recognized in a number of formats, and in particular, there's an exchange format for notation called music XML, and XML is a sort of a generic way of exchanging information. It's designed to be read by computers more than human beings, and essentially, if you were to look at it, you would see a whole bunch of brackets that have like names of sections and then the data that goes in the sections, and then maybe some additional properties of that data that might have a name, and then the values for that. So it just looks like a big table of stuff. Let me show you what some actually I'll show you what some music XML looks like in a minute. But I can read my tool, my ABC tool can read music XML and turn it back into notation. So I knew that I could use this PlayScore 2 to go through that PDF tune book. This one, admit somebody here, that could go through this PDF tune book, tune by tune, and I could then I could then do the music OCR on it, and I could export the music XML for those tunes, and I could then bring those tunes into my tool and then recreate the tune book. So a couple things about PlayScore 2. PlayScore 2 is, like I said, it's a mobile app, but you're seeing it here. I'm running on a Macintosh. This is a Mac Studio. And what I'm actually running is I'm running the iPad version of PlayScore 2. It turns out that if you have a modern Mac, M1234, it can run generally, if the developer of the app has said it's okay, it can run any iPad app, which was really convenient because, I mean, everything I'm showing you could be done on mobile, but if you happen to have a Mac, and I do, it's really nice to be able to do this. The PlayScore 2 program also runs on Android, so if you have an Android phone or Android tablet, you can use PlayScore 2 on that device as well. My advice would be if you do, I'm going to show you how PlayScore 2 does this, and it works exactly the same on the mobile device, it's probably easier to use the device to do the recognition and then create these music XML files, and then get those files off of your device and get them onto a desktop computer to do the assembly, rather than trying, even though it's perfectly capable, the ABC tools run on a mobile device. Doing this kind of editing, this kind of assembly is way easier on an actual computer with larger screens, larger windows, and that sort of thing. So the other thing about PlayScore 2 is PlayScore 2, the free version of it, can open up can recognize either from the camera, so you can actually take a picture of the sheet music, if you want, and it can recognize it and play it, and that's all it'll do for free. But if you want to export the results and use it somewhere else, then you actually have to pay. And it's a subscription, one of those, unfortunately, one of those subscription type of apps. It's something like $7 a month or $50 a year. And I can tell you it's well worth it. I just bought the $50 a year feature for it. But I'm doing this a fair bit. You could, and the nice thing about their subscription model is if you just want it for a month and then don't need it, you just pay for a month. It's that sort of thing. And I think, considering when you see how powerful it is, I've brought full orchestral scores into this PlayScore 2 and had it do the recognition just perfectly. It's an absolute, and there are other tools that do this, but I've not found one that works better than PlayScore 2. So here's what I actually did. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up that PDF file from the Cultist chapter. And it brings it into PlayScore 2. And what it does is it then puts up a little page selector at the top. So here are all the pages. It's 47 pages. They do some odd tunes. And then what you do in PlayScore 2 is you pick the pages that you want to have it recognize. You click on the top to say, I want to go from this page to another page, and you just click the top and bottom. So if you wanted one page, you just do the top and bottom. 2 pages, you would click the top of the first one, bottom of the second one. So we're going to just do the first one. And once I've selected my pages, I just say done. And I'm going to turn on, because this has chords listed, I'm going to turn on one feature here, which is lyrics and text. And that just tells it to include the text when it does the recognition. And at this point, it's actually done the recognition. There's nothing I need to do. I can actually play it at this point. I can just click play. So PlayScore 2 has already recognized the notes in it. It doesn't play the chords, but it'll include the chords in the exported file. So now that it's done the recognition, I need to get that data out of PlayScore 2. And to do that, I save it out as share as music XML. And it'll say, what do you want to do with it? I want to save it. And then I'll just put it in my downloads directory here, and I'll just give it the same name, abruksa.xml. And now I'll go back to the page selector, and I'll get the next set. So I'll go to the next one, and again, we do these one at a time because I want each of these tunes to be in a separate file because partially because PlayScore 2 doesn't know how to divide a tune book into. It'd be nice if I could just say do from the first page to the last page and save out an XML for each of the tunes. It unfortunately doesn't know how to do that. So there you have to do a little bit yourself. But anyway, I'll select the next page, say done. And now it's like, well, I have to tell it of these tunes on the page here, which area do I want it to recognize? And so there's a little cropping tool here. I click that, and it allows me to drag a little crop rectangle to show, I just want you to do that much. And then I say done. And at this point, it's done the recognition. It happens very, very quickly. I can just to prove it, I can play it. And in that tool, you can change the speed of playback and that sort of thing. But just sort of to show that, yeah, it actually did recognize those notes. I do the same thing again. Share as music XML. We're going to do about 4 of these, and then I'll go back to the tool. And I'll say save. And we'll say abby.xml. And now I want the next one on this page. So to do that, I go back to the cropping tool, and I just change the crop region here. Now, you can see it's like it had sort of like a minimum crop size. Like I can't get smaller than that. So they actually provide another little selector here where it's like if I need to get rid of just that piece, I can just drag a little selector around that and it'll take it out as well. So that was one thing I ran into with PlayScore 2. It was like the built-in single selector couldn't do really short tunes. So you do have the ability to create like additional crop. You can say crop that out and it gets rid of that from the recognition. So it's only going to recognize what's highlighted here. So I say done. It's actually already done the recognition. Again, export, shares music XML, save. This will be Ara Mountains. And then we'll do the last one on the page here, Babes in the Woods. I'm going to just clear all of these crop areas. And we'll just drag this down. And I'll get rid of that. And now we have just Babes in the Woods. Done. Export. Save. And maybe I'll just do a couple more. So go back to the page selector. And now I'll go to the next page. I have Ballad Desmond 1 and 2. Same thing, crop. I'm going to crop just the first one. So you can kind of see there's a rhythm to this. Yeah. So and I export it. This will be Ballad Desmond 1. And then we'll go crop, just isolate the second one. Okay, so I think that's all I'm going to do. You can just kind of imagine that you would go through the entire, tune book one by one, page by page, just go to the next page, isolate the first one, isolate the second one, and so on. And work your way through the entire 47 pages. And that goes pretty quick. So now what we end up with is we have a whole bunch of these XML files, music XML files. And if I look in my downloads directory, you can see here we've got these XML files. And I'll just open one of those up so you can kind of see when I was talking about what XML looks like. It's really not designed to be, it's designed to be processed by computers, but you can kind of see the structure here. It says like, here's a parts list, here's some attributes, here's the clef, it's a G clef, you know, what the key is, and then it just has these individual records that says, you know, here's a note, here's some harmony description. This is not something that human beings are designed to run. This is something that computers are designed to understand. But this is what comes out. This is what music XML is. So now that we have this music XML, we're going to want to bring that into the ABC tools. And so the ABC tools are, you can get to it, there's a couple of different ways. One is just michaeleskin.com/ABC. That'll take you right there. But once you're there, there's a couple of ways that you can get these in. Actually, I'm going to okay, so let me back up a little bit. So one of the things you're going to want to do is I want to take a look. Let me show you something on that tune book. So if we actually look at these tunes, if you look at the way that the music is structured, it's like this first line is 4 measures and this line's 4 measures. But this line is 5 measures because it has a second ending. And if we go through the tunes, you can see that, I mean, a lot of them are just structured, like this one is structured with, looks like 8 bars for the line. This one has a pickup, so the first one has 5, and then the second one has 5, and the next one has 4, and the next one has 5. So when you're doing music XML import in my tool, you can specify the number of bars when it brings in that stream of consciousness. The music XML doesn't really have information on the number of bars per line. It just says basically, you know, here's a bar, and you know, here's a repeat start, and here's a bunch of notes, and here's a bar line, and so on. And so the thing that takes the music XML and turns it into ABC, one of the options is how many bars do you want per staff? And you'd think that, well, probably the easiest thing to do would be to set it to 4. And it turns out that's a really bad choice because of those pickup bars and those first and second endings. And what you end up having to do if you do that is you end up having to do a lot of editing because it's like, well, I really do want that first ending to be on that previous bar, and I have a pickup, so I really do want 5 measures in this first thing, and you end up having to reformat the text a lot. And I discovered this about, you know, 70 tunes into the tune book that that there was a way easier way to do it. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So in the settings for the tool, in the settings, there's a little hamburger menu here, and there's settings. And under that, there's music XML. And again, if those of you, if you're expecting an introduction to ABC or something, this is not it. We're really kind of into the weeds here. But the music XML settings, you want to go there. And by default, the bars per line for music XML import is set to 4. I'm going to suggest sending it to something ridiculously high, like 128. And I'll show you why in a second. So set that to 128, and that's going to basically say, I just want you to bring in one line. I don't want you to do any bar dividing when you're bringing these tunes in. So, and then you can close that dialog. And I'm going to open that first one, Albrooksa, okay? And what you'll see here at the top is you'll see we get this big long line of music here. And what I found was that when you're trying to recreate the layout of somebody else's tune, it's far easier to do this, to just take that long line and then start counting bars and just stick in carriage returns. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, new line. 1, 2, 3, 4, new line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, new line. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'll just put in a bar line and a return because there was a repeat bar. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And now this tune is done, okay? and then and you can see that goes pretty quick, sort of dividing that, and it looks now the way it's actually physically laid out is exactly the same as the original version that was in the PDF tune book. So if we look at the PDF tune book here, that first tune, it's the same layout, right? We've got the 4-bar sections, and then we've got the first and second ending on the last time. Okay, then I can add. I can then add the next one. So the next one we could say, I believe it was Abby. Abby goes down here, and we go through the same process. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now the second one is done. Okay. And you essentially rinse and repeat for 87 tunes. If I had figured out that trick of bringing in the really long bar lines, setting them to really long and then doing this kind of subdividing, it would have saved me probably 2 hours to not have to, because originally I was bringing them in as 4, and that made this kind of thing very challenging, because I would have to like I'd have to take a measure from the previous line and put it on the next line, put it on the previous line. Now, just make it one big long tune and then just subdivide it. We'll go ahead and bring in the rest of them. Let's see, we'll go ahead. I'm going to show you another way to get stuff in is you can drag and drop. So if I have my list of tunes here, let's see, we had the Abbey, the next one will be Our Mountain. I can just drag and drop that XML file on there, and it'll put it at the end here. So we have Our Mountains. And again, you can see it down here on the bottom. We'll count it out, 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. What's it to count right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. That one's done. And we'll get to the next one. We'll just say add Babes in the Wood. And we'll just quickly do this one here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that one has a. This is a. You notice that double colon? That means to put a repeat on both sides. So you have to kind of manually stick in the bar lines there. Again, not hard to do. 1, 2, 3, 4. Carriage return. And now Babes in the Woods is done. And we'll bring in the first of the Bally Desmonds. And again, see, if this is a case I had a pickup, and if I was doing it 4 bars per measure by default, then it would have cut it off at the third measure. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have these first and second ending here. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
Can you do just a find to find those vertical bars? I know that your example at the beginning here, you might end up with 5 measures, but rather than having to place
you can, but then you're having to go like find and then do this.
I just thought maybe you could.
Yeah, you could, but I find it easier to just count them manually.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Place. Yeah. And then we'll do the last one here. Choose file to add, Bally Desmond. We get the last Bally Desmond. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to split that repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we've got the Bally Desmond. So now we've got, we've done 6 tunes out of the 80 some odd. And you kind of imagine, okay, it took what, 5 minutes, including me talking, to convert 6 tunes. So you can imagine probably in an hour, less than 2 hours, you could convert that entire tune book over to ABC. I'm going to go ahead and save this just because we don't want to lose it. We'll say tunebook.abc. And let's see, what other things did I notice? I noticed that for some reason the Abbey came in at with a cut time time signature. I'm going to change that to 4/4. Let's see, Bally Desmonds, they all look good. So I'm just kind of looking at this and saying, do I see anything else that needs to be changed? If you notice, it got all of the chords perfectly right. The OCR is really good. Is really good. I mean, compared, I've brought in, like I say, massive I'll give you an example here at the end. It's my standard example of what this thing is capable of doing. Some other things is that we can clean this up a little bit. I don't need, for example, to have, because these are just single part tunes, I can actually get rid of these little part markers here that just put the names on the parts because there's only a single part. So that'll clean that. They'll get rid of those little strings that say part 1 at the beginning. So you can do, you can do this kind of cleanup if you want. It's all optional. And the beauty of it is at this point, these tunes will play. So if I click play, it will play. Right. So these things are, already interactive just by being the fact that they're in ABC. You can change the tempo. So like here's the Abby, we'll play it. It's like, well, that's kind of slow for real. Maybe we'll make it, we want to have, let's say, we want each quarter note to be at maybe 110 beats per minute. Now if we play it, it'll play faster. Oh, sorry, it should be 8th note. There we go. What am I doing? Sorry, half, that's fine. Okay, so you can go through and, if you want, you can change the default playback tempo for each of the tunes. See, 90 might be good, let's see. Okay, so you can go through the tunes, you could try testing playing them, because when we actually create the PDF tune book, the speed that when I click on them and play them, the speed that the PDF version will play will be whatever speed is actually kind of built into the tune itself. So let's see, we'll just say Babes in the Woods. What does it sound like? That could be a little faster. We'll make that maybe 120. And Ballet Desmond, I'm guessing all of these polkas are going to be a little slow, so we'll make them a little faster. And if you notice down here, when you're testing these, the tunes all show up down here. You can kind of step through them. There's a little selector here, let you step through them. And there's also a drop down that has a list of all of them. So you can go to any particular tune. Okay, so imagine I've got all 80 tunes here, all 82.
So Michael, here's my chance for a timely question.
Sure.
Is there a way to make it play the whole tune book one
No.
at a time?
No, there's not.
Okay, that'd be cool.
Yeah, there's no way to do that, unfortunately.
All right.
I mean, there are ways of making it play tunes one after another, but it has to do with structuring the ABC itself. So that, for example, ABC uses this little X to denote a separation of tunes. And it turns out if you just like run two tunes together without an X, these two will play one after another because it thinks it's one tune that changes meter in the middle. So there are ways of constructing playable sets of multiple tunes in ABC. If you actually want to make like a set to send somebody that's like all 3 tunes and have them play one after another, there is a way to construct a tune essentially that's 3 tunes, but the tune books actually are designed to have sort of each tune on their own. Okay, so we'll talk more about what we could do with this after we kind of generate the initial tune book. So at this point, if we just want to just generate a PDF, so if I wanted to sort of get the equivalent of what the Cultist tune book was, we're not going to talk about any interaction, any kind of table of contents, any kind of playback. I can just do export PDF at this point. And I could say I wanted letter, I wanted portrait, I want one, let's just say multiple tunes per page. I'll put a page number in the bottom right. And we'll go ahead and just export that. And what we'll end up with is a PDF that is, here's our PDF of the Tunebook so far. But this is, again, this is a purely static PDF, just like the original. Now, that might be sufficient, because it might be that, well, they don't care about playback or whatever, but by having all of the tunes in one spot like this and, ability to regenerate it quickly, if they wanted to make a change or change a chord, or someone said, hey, that D minor chord here, that really should be a B minor, they could regenerate the, if I said, okay, I want to make that D minor a B minor, there's a feature called highlighting. I can just click on that D minor, it lights up over here. I can say, okay, I'm going to change that to B minor, changes in the notation. I can export the new PDF. And now they would have a version of the PDF with the correction. This is how fast it can be done. Right, so now we got a version with the B minor. This would require probably an hour to do using the previous system that they used. I'm going to go ahead and change that B minor back to D minor. But for example, again, we're not even talking about interactivity. We're not talking about playback. We're not talking about title pages, nothing yet. They want to do a mandolin version of this. Just click on mandolin. Now we have mandolin tablature, export PDF, Tunebook mandolin. Actually, I'm gonna, because the mandolin stuff is taller, I'm going to just put single tune per page, not have it try to break the pages up. And now we'll have a mandolin version of it. So here's the mandolin tab version of it. Just as quick to produce it. And then they say, well, what we really want is we want to, for our whistle players, we want whistle tablature for the tune. Let's see, I'm going to change something here real quick just to set the spacing a little tighter for all of the music. There we go. And we'll do an export PDF. And now we'll have a whistle tablature tune book of the same set of tunes. So now we have the whistle tab version, right? This is the beauty of getting this stuff into ABC and getting it into my tool, is it just makes it really easy to do these kinds of multiple versions. And we'll just go back to notation. Okay, so far, before I go into the kind of the next step, which is how we're going to make this thing interactive, which is going to take essentially literally 2 clicks of the mouse. Any questions I can answer so far? Okay, cool. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to add a couple of features to this PDF file to do a couple of things. One is I want to be able to have a table of contents that has the tune names, where I can click on the name of the tune in the table of contents, and I want to have it jump to that tune in the tune book. And then the second thing I want is I want to have it so that when I click on the title of the tune in the tune book, that it actually opens that tune up in the player. So they'll have the PDF, they open the PDF in Adobe Acrobat or whatever whatever PDF reader they're using, and they can now play the tunes from the PDF file. And to do that, when we go to Export PDF, you'll see there's a button at the top that says Inject PDF Tunebook Features. And this is where you can set up a whole bunch of additional stuff that gets added to the PDF file. And so we'll just kind of walk through them. One is there's different quality levels. These, the only way I can describe it is just like, these have more to do with the size of the file. These are effectively, how would I describe it? The notation are effectively JPEG images that are stamped onto the pages. And so the tunebooks do end up being bigger than some other tunebooks, just because they're literally high resolution bitmaps, and it just has to do with the technology that's available to go from the vector representation in the browser to the vector representation in the PDF doesn't exist. So we had to do it a different way. But you can just leave this, usually, unless you're at multiple hundreds of tunes. This doesn't make a whole lot of difference. This is when you have multiple tunes per page, how much spacing is between those tunes. And then there's a whole bunch of stuff that adds features. So there's, for example, if you want a title page on the front of the tune book, you can just put the title here. If you take this out, you'll see it says no title page will be included. Okay, or if you take that, it'll say no subtitle be included. But I'll put a title page. I'll say San Diego Cultist Tunebook. We'll just say, and we'll put a subtitle of demo. Today's what? 17 August 2024. And then if you want a table of contents, you just have to put a title in here. So if you don't want a table of contents, you can just delete that. It won't put a table of contents in. It'll tell you no table of contents will be included. But I'll just put a title. It'll say table of contents. That's just what goes on the top of the table of contents. And same thing with the index. If you want an index, you just put the title for the index here. Or if you don't want a title. But we'll just have a table of contents, no index. Yeah, I'll put an index. And then you can have a page header and page footer. I just won't have a page header. I'll have a page footer that says, we'll just have a button page on the bottom that says this is for the demo on Zoom. And that'll go on the bottom of the page. So now we get into a section that has to do with playing the tunes. And you can see there's a checkbox here. It says add playback links to each tune to allow playing the tune by clicking the tune title. If that is checked, then when it generates the PDF file, as it's walking through each tune, it actually generates a hyperlink, a share link, that gets associated with the title of the tune on that PDF page. And that hyperlink contains the entire tune and a link to my tool. And what happens is when you click that link, it opens up my tool. My tool reads the rest of the parameters that are in that hyperlink. And that hyperlink literally includes the ABC. It's been compressed and encoded, but it literally includes the ABC and the settings that are used for that ABC. And then it loads that ABC into the player. So just all you have to do is click that box, just add playback links. And then you have some options for when you play it back. Well, do you want a piano sound or do you want a mandolin sound? And there's more information about all of this in the tool user guide. There are a whole bunch of what are called sound fonts. Sound fonts are kind of like, you think about MIDI synthesizers. They're like the different MIDI synthesizer manufacturers. It's like Roland or Yamaha or Korg or Sequential Circuits. I kind of date myself by some of those names. But the idea is that, you know, they all have the same set of sounds. They all have a piano and they all have a flute and they all have, you know, a trumpet. But the trumpet in the fluid sound font sounds different than the trumpet in the Musingkite sound font, which sounds different than Fatboy. You can try them out and figure the ones you like. I happen to like the Fatboy piano sound, the acoustic piano sound. And then you can pick the sound that's used for the melody. And then remember there were backup bass and chords, and you can pick the sound that's used for the bass instrument. I will say, for example, that I want to use the, we'll use the synth bass 1 for the bass, and for the chord, I will leave it as a piano. And I can set the volumes of those things. So these just have to do with what happens when you actually play the tunes when they're clicked on. And let's see here. And if you want to put a QR code at the end of the tune book, you can click this and it'll stick a QR code with it'll either try to put all the tunes, encode all the tunes in the QR code, or you can put your own URL. I won't put a QR code in this tune book, so we'll turn that off. So what this will end up doing is we'll end up with a tune book that has a title page that says San Diego Cultist Tune Book with a subtitle of Demo 17 August 2024. It'll include a table of contents. It'll say table of contents at the top. It'll have an index at the end. And there won't be a page header. It'll be a footer on each page that says this is for the demo on Zoom. When we click the tunes, they will play, and they will play with acoustic grand piano from the Fatboy sound font. The bass in the backup will be the synth bass 1, and the chords will be played with the acoustic grand piano. And I'll just click OK. And I'm going to go ahead and close this. And I just want to show you what it did. And what it did is it added this block of text to the top of the ABC. And you could do this whole thing manually, and I realized that was a bit much to ask people to do. And so I made that this dialog here to sort of automate the process of building those commands. These are a set of commands that are specific to my tool. And you can kind of see how they map over to the things we just did. So here's the quality, here's the space between tunes, Here's the title, here's subtitle, table of contents. I'll talk about this in a second when we actually look at the PDF. And then you can see there's a thing here that says add all playback links. It has some information about the sound font and the instruments and then the volumes. That little inject PDF Tunebook features generates this block for you. The other thing about these commands is you notice that they all start with a percent sign. And in ABC, any line that starts with just 1% sign is considered a comment. So the idea being that, if someone say, well, you say these commands are private, to your tool. Well, what happens if I want to use Easy ABC or ABC Navigator or any of the other ABC tools out there in the world? Well, the beauty is when they open this file, as far as they're concerned, these are no ops. These are comments. My tool, when it generates the PDF file, it looks for these very specific strings of text and it does things based on them. And they're kind of constructed that you would probably most likely not type this particular string in an ABC by accident, right? So these are private, what I call comment-based directives that are specific to my tool that allow me to do things at PDF generation time that are, again, features that are in my tool, but there is no equivalent to these commands in the ABC standard. So there had to be some way of conveying this information in the tool. So for example, there's no concept of a table of contents in ABC. There's no concept of actually, much less having hyperlinks on a PDF file. So I had to invent a system essentially that would allow you to express those kinds of things you wanted in your PDF Tunebooks in a way that didn't break the ABC. In other words, I didn't want this ABC, the actual ABC, to be proprietary to my tool. I wanted it to be something that was interchangeable, and by making them comments, it does that. Anyway, so with those in place, that block of sort of PDF metadata in place, and again, we'll just save this. It's just in the file as text. If you wanted to change the title, you could change it right here. You could say, my San Diego occultist Tunebook. You could change it in the text. You don't have to use that dialogue. It's just the dialogue is a very convenient way to sort of get a boilerplate for the Tunebook. We'll go ahead and export the PDF. We'll do multiple tunes per page, same as before. You can pick the font for the title page here if you wanted, and the table of contents and all that. I'll just leave it at Times, and we'll just say Tunebook enhanced. And okay, walks through the pages, adds the index, and now what we'll get is something very different. So now we have I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so you can see the pages. So now we have a title page, and we have a table of contents, and then we have the tunes. And and we see we have a page number in the bottom corner. I'll zoom in a little bit so you can kind of see. We have a page number in the corner. We have our footer on each page. The other thing we have is I mentioned about in the ABC about these things here, this add link back to TOC and add link back to index. Those are what create these little arrows, and those arrows will take you back to the table of contents or take you to the index. So they're just a navigation option on the tunes in the Tunebook to let you get around quickly. So let's say we go to Arrow Mountains here, and then we want to play it. All we have to do is click on the title. And now that actually opened in the web page, opened in my ABC tools, and we can click it, play it. And we probably could have, let's change this, let's just regenerate it. So we're like, oh geez, that's too slow. We really want it to be twice that fast. So we'll go back in the tools here. We'll find Arrow Mountains. We'll change the speed, let's say to 200. The Q is the tempo tag. We'll re-export the PDF file. And we'll go back down to Arrow Mountains. We'll click, you see now it's changed to 200. Click on it, opens in the tool. And I picked that synth bass so you can kind of hear it. It would be obvious that it was a synth bass. The nice thing is once they're here, they can do a lot of stuff. For example, you can turn on a metronome. So now we'll play with a metronome. Okay, we could have a metronome. Depending on your screen size, you can set this wide view. It gives you a nice big image. You could export an MP3 of this if you wanted. There's a bunch of options here for exporting it as a WAV file or a picture of the image. You can do anything you want with that. But the thing that I find most, the other thing too is you could change the tempo here. This is a percentage of the current tempo. So right now it's set to 100. If we wanted it twice as fast, we could set that to 200%. And now when we play, it'll be twice as fast. Right? But a better way to do it is to use this thing called the Tune Trainer. And the Tune Trainer is an interactive feature that allows you to set a start speed and an end speed. So the idea is that I want to take this tune and I want to learn it. I want to start at half speed and I want to end at full speed. And I want to have it, let's say, play the tune. We'll start it at 50% speed and we'll have it play the tune through 3 times. And then we'll have it go to 60% and have it play through 3 times and so on. And so you set your start tempo here, your end tempo here, how much you want it to increment, how many times it should play through the tune before it increments the speed, and whether you want a countdown timer when we start. And I'll just start up a session. You'll kind of see what it looks like and I'll try to explain what it does. So we'll just say start. We'll go ahead and just start it. You'll see you'll get a countdown, 5 seconds. If we're playing your mandolin or whatever, you have to pick it up, put it on, gives you some time to get it on. And it'll start at the starting tempo. And then when it gets to the end, I'll manually drag it to the end. You'll see it'll now switch to 60% speed. Because we're just looping it after 1, and then it would play through, and now it'll go to 70%. And then 80%, and 90%, and finally 100%. So it's a really nice training environment for playing tunes, for learning tunes. And I use this myself. The idea is that I don't like to learn from sheet music. I like to learn from listening. And so I'll just set up one of these training sessions and I just won't look at the screen. I'll just sit over here and work on concertina or whatever it is I'm working on. But the idea is that all those tunes now in that PDF tune book have this feature. So, the people in the class can say, oh, I want to work on Babes in the Woods. They click on Babes in the Woods. It comes up in the player and they can run the trainer. And it's the same thing whether it works exactly the same way for the tablature version. So if we wanted to generate a mandolin version of this, we would just switch it over to mandolin. We would export this. We can leave everything else the same. We'll just do 1 tune per page. And now we'll have a mandolin version of the tune book. So same tune book, same features as far as the table of contents. And now we can just go to the tunes. We can click on, you can see now we've got the tablature. We click on the tune and now it comes up with the tablature in the player. But let's say you wanted to have your mandolin version play with a mandolin. So what we would need to do is we can change, we could manually go into the features here. We can go into inject tunebook features and we'll just change this acoustic grand piano for the melody to the mandolin, which is way down at the end here. We'll say mandolin. And all it did was just changed this value from a 0 to 141. And we'll generate that tune book. And same tune book, go to the tune. And now when it plays, it'll play with a mandolin instead of piano. So I hope that kind of conveys the sort of flexibility that's possible. Once you have it in the ABC version of it, you can very, very easily regenerate these tune books with different instruments, different tablatures, all of that quite simply. I noticed that it was interesting. The ABC the Music XML software put in extra spaces there. So you might have to do a little bit of editing of names and that sort of thing, but it's a heck of a lot easier than trying to manually enter all that music by hand. It does, like I say, like it does like 90%, 95% of the work for you, that PlayScore 2, and then you just have to do a little bit of cleanup. But it's worth it because you spend a couple of hours getting an old tune book like that converted over to this format, and now you've got something that can be a living document. It's for example, I think they do the tune class weekly, so they've got 4 new tunes each week. If they want to regenerate the tune book each week, they could. If they wanted to, it would take literally, you could see, to generate a new version in 4 different instruments would take literally less than 2 minutes, to get the new PDFs to put up on the website. So it really provides it's just a really simple workflow. Once obviously there's a learning curve here that, this is, and we're at the kind of the more complicated side of what's possible with the tool. But once you kind of learn these basics, you can see that it takes care of a lot of stuff for you. Really the only part of, you have to know a little bit about ABC to know kind of, how do bar lines work, how to split things up a little bit. But it doesn't require a whole lot of it's not a very technical thing to have to do if you just understand some basic ABC stuff. So I think that sort of covers the whole thing. And you can just imagine, take this and multiply it times 20, and that's what I did to be able to recreate this tune book. Let me go to the final version, which was, so again, here's the original version, and here's the replacement version with all of their tunes. So the only other thing that I did is that if you notice that on the tune books that we just exported, so I'll just open one of those up. So it has this generic title page. And I wanted to use the original title page that the tune book had. And to do that, this is a case where my tool can't generate this kind of a title page. So you have to use some kind of a PDF editor. I have access to Adobe Acrobat here. So what I did is I actually copied and pasted I replaced the tune book page here. So for example, so here we are in Adobe Acrobat, and here's the original tune book. And I'm going to, again, this is not a function of my stuff. This is just an Acrobat thing. So here's my tune book. Here's the original. You can go in Acrobat, and again, you need to have an Adobe subscription for this, or at least have access to Acrobat. And there are other PDF tools that can do this, but I haven't been using Acrobat. I can do Edit, and I can go into their Organize Pages. This is all the pages from the original tune book. I can copy the original tune book title page. I can then go into the one we generated. Same thing, I can go into Edit, Organize Pages. I can paste in, we'll just paste in the replacement title page, and then I will delete the original title page. And when I close that, I now have the tune book with the original title page. And everything else will continue to work exactly the same way. So that's one of those cases where if you want special graphics or a logo or something like that, you're going to need to bring it into some kind of a PDF editor. But you don't actually have to, like the rest of the PDF maintains all the same playing features and all that. So if you're wondering, like, how did you get that tune book cover sheet in there, I just used Adobe Acrobat to manually stick it in. There are some other ways of working with PDFs. that don't require you to actually have a paid version of Adobe Acrobat. There's a website that I found it's called ilovepdf.com of all things, and they have a whole bunch of free tools for messing with PDF. If you need to convert PDF to other stuff, like combine PDF files or split them into individual pages. If you want to, you want to like turn your PDFs into JPEGs or whatever, this will do it for free. So that can be a very useful tool if you don't have access to Adobe Acrobat. Oh, I do want to show you one other feature. This was actually something recently I added to the tool. Was if you want to get out PDFs for each tune. So when we did the export PDF, when we do this, we picked, let's say, one tune per page. There's a whole bunch of options here for the layout. And you can see, for example, one of the options is what's called notes and snippets. And I'll generate this. It's easier to just show you what this ends up creating. This is the case where you want to make like a cheat sheet for the tunes. You can see it looks exactly the same, except now when we go to the tunes, you see we just get the first line of the tunes. So it works, and other than that, it works exactly the same way. Another option is what's just called, we have these text and snippets, but I'll actually say complete tunes. And there's a bunch of text export as well. So this will actually put the ABC. If you're someone who would rather not look at dots, but would rather look at the letters, it'll just put the tunes out in this kind of a format with just the letters. But one of the ones I added more recently is if you wanted to put out a PDF that plays for each of the tunes in the tune book as an individual PDF file, you can very easily do that. And the way you do that is just export PDF, and there's a new option at the very bottom that says individual PDF for each tune. And when we do this, I'm going to walk through those tunes, and now it's going to split it. And it's now split it into each of these is now an individual PDF file. Instead of having one big book, you actually end up with each tune as its own, and each of those behaves like its own tune book. It has the playback features. So there's a lot of options. So this is a case where if for the students in the cultist class, for example, if they're this week they're teaching the Abbey, it's really easy to be able to split out the particular PDF for that tune, so you don't have to give them the whole tune book. You could just say, if you just need the handout for that one tune, there's a very easy way to do that right from the tool. Anyway, that is kind of it. I've kind of gone quickly, but the idea here was I wanted to kind of show you a couple things. One is that the conversion of the PDF to ABC and then back to PDF is, with the help of PlayScore 2, is relatively straightforward. Once you've kind of gone through the process the first time is going to be probably a little slower, but once you kind of get the rhythm of it and the flow of it and understand the tool, it happens pretty quick. The second is I wanted to show that once you actually have these things in ABC format, it opens up so much more than just having a static, having a static image of these tunes, compared to what's possible with having the ability to build the interactive versions or build the different instruments and that sort of thing, is I think enormously powerful, and particularly in a situation like for Cultist Branch, where these are tune teaching classes. A lot of these students, some of these students don't actually read music very well. And so, they might actually do better by having the ability to play the tunes rather than having to, I think it's useful for people to learn notation, but like I say, personally, I came from a classical background. I learned my tunes by ear because when I'm playing traditional music, I feel like I do much better in terms of owning the tune if I'm playing it from tunes I've learned by ear. So by giving them access to things like the player and the tune trainer, rather than having them to be stuck to the paper, I think really helps empower them to become better musicians. It also prepares them much better for playing in sessions if that's what they want to do. One of the things that I'm really sort of committed to is to trying to wean beginning traditional Irish music students off of the paper and getting them to give up that security blanket and to trust themselves to be able to learn by ear. And this kind of thing sort of helps gives them hopefully a gentle nudge in that direction. There are other features actually specifically in the tool for the cultist branches. Probably won't talk about that in this event today, but there are other things here that are specifically there for cultists that have to do with how they represent the music in Ireland versus how they represent it in standard ABC and that sort of thing. But that would be for another seminar.